I personally hope Cabrina will not choose Pepperdine. It'll take us so far away from us. And I've been there, and how anybody can study with the ocean right outside the window, I don't understand. But we are very proud of you, Cabrina, and every student at this school and everything that this school represents. And we are really grateful for the chance to intrude on your afternoon and introduce you to the best friend of American education and American students. One of the great joys of life is to be able to introduce good friends to each other. And Mr. Secretary, I can tell you that in this room are convened people who share your love of kids, your reverence for public education, your reverence for excellence anywhere in education. And you will soon find out that this is America's best friend for kids and for students and for high quality in their preparation for life. There's an old saying that you may even have encountered in a government class, I don't know, that partisanship should stop at the water's edge. That is to say, people who belong to different parties or disagree about things. When it comes to representing our nation to the world, we ought to come together as one. I've always thought that partisanship should also stop at the school door. That if there's one thing everybody agrees on in our nation, it is that we need to provide our young people with the highest possible quality preparation, wherever they come from, wherever they're headed. That every single student, first of all, is capable of great things, and secondly, deserves a chance to fulfill their life's potential. I don't know anybody who disagrees with those goals, and sometimes we have different ideas about how to get there. But our speaker today is the nation's champion, along with the president he serves, of that ideal. Because of the ideal of unifying around those goals, I want to say a special word of thanks to people who are here this morning or this afternoon from organizations like Stand for Children, our own Mind Trust that we're happy to have housed here in Indianapolis, especially to the organization that has grown up called Democrats for Education Reform. We're here to accentuate the positive, those many things on which we agree. Our speaker is a person who has the quality I like most in a friend. I think I can call him a friend, and that is courage, sometimes described as the very first virtue. Change is very hard in education. It is, the challenges are huge, the habits are old and deeply ingrained, and the vested interests are very powerful. It takes an awful lot of gumption and courage to stand for what you believe is right and to try to translate your ideals into practice, and this man is doing it in a way that I don't think any previous secretary has been able to. I just want to say that Arne Duncan and his president deserve a lot of credit and a lot of our appreciation for their commitment to the young people of this country and to the common future the great future we'll all have when every student one day is studying in a school as great as Tindley. Please welcome the Secretary of Education, Arne Duncan.
Thank you, Governor, for that kind introduction. I'm going to keep my remarks very quick. I want to have a conversation here, and this is an extraordinary student body. So please think of all those tough questions. Give the governor all the hard ones. Give me all the easy ones, and we'll have a good day together. First, to Principal Robinson and the Tindley family. I'm in hundreds and hundreds of schools around the country, 2, 3, 4 schools. I see some places that are absolutely inspiring. I see some places that honestly break your heart. I see everything in between. But this is a school you walk in for about a minute, and you get a sense of the culture of high expectations. You get a sense of the remarkable commitment of teachers, and most importantly, you get a sense for the students' own sense of responsibility in getting a great education, help each other, be successful. And I have to tell you, so many of you are so much more mature, thinking so much longer term than I was at your age. It's inspiring. It's a little scary. I'm like, oh man, I missed out on so much. But I'd just like to ask all our students and all the faculty and administration of the school to please stand, and let's give them all a huge round of applause. What gives me energy, what inspires me is, frankly, not being in Washington. It's not sitting behind a desk. It's getting out and talking to real students and real teachers and real principals every single day and learning what's working and what's not. The governor hit on some of the real challenges that our country faces. I just want to sort of quickly outline why we think this is so important. I've said repeatedly, I think education is the civil rights issue of our generation. For me, the dividing line in our country today is less around race and class than it is around academic and educational opportunity. And give me a child from a tough community and a family that may be struggling, in a neighborhood that may be far too violent, but put that young person in a great early childhood program, put that person in a great elementary and middle and high school with high expectations where they can go off to college and be successful. And I'm extraordinarily hopeful, extraordinarily optimistic about that young person's future, as I am for all of yours. But if you put that same young person in a high school where 40, 50%, 60% of students are dropping out, then despite our best of intentions, our best efforts, we are actually perpetuating poverty and social failure. And so we have to challenge that. This is an issue of national security. I was stunned to learn. I've done a couple press conferences with a series of generals and admirals, and they have all kinds of medals. I always feel very safe in those press conferences. But today, less than 25% of our young people qualify to go into the military. So 75% of our young people either aren't academically prepared, they're physically unfit, or they have a criminal record. And then ultimately, to me, this is also an economic imperative, that we just have other countries out-educating us today, and they're going to continue to out-compete us. And you guys aren't competing for jobs in this city or in this state or in this country. You guys are competing for jobs with children in India and China and South Korea, and they're just in some cases working smarter than us, working harder than us, and I think our young people around the country are as smart, as talented, as committed, as entrepreneurial, as creative as children anywhere in the world. We have to give you better opportunities. And the president and I recently met with a number of CEOs and in a small group, about 15, and it was amazing to me that in a tough economy, how many of those CEOs said we are desperately trying to hire more people now, but we just don't have the knowledge workers to fill these high-skill, high-wage jobs. In a time right now where unemployment is far too high, we actually have over 2 million unfilled jobs today. Great jobs, good-paying jobs, high-skilled jobs that we're just not getting folks ready for. And so schools like this, I think, are a huge part of the answer, and we need to learn from them, we need to replicate, we need to share the examples. And to all of our young people here, I want you guys to know that you guys are role models today. So you don't have to wait till you're grown. Your younger brothers and sisters, your nieces and nephews, other children on the block, they're watching you every single day. They're watching you going to school in a shirt and a tie, in a nice uniform. I'm sure you get talked about sometimes. I'm sure it's a little hard to explain, but the example you're setting of getting up, working hard, having those aspirations, you guys are changing behavior and helping to shape this community in a really profound way. And I thank you for the example that you're setting for all of us. So given those challenges we talked about that are very real and that in my mind are urgent, we have a tough economic time. We have to get better faster than we ever have educationally, despite or maybe because of that tough economic time. The question is, how do we do it? How do we reverse decades of stagnation? One generation ago, we led the world in college graduates. We flatlined. We stopped getting better. 9 other countries have passed us by. So how do we continue to drive innovation and reform? How do we strengthen the teaching profession? You got some extraordinary teachers in this school. How do we make that the norm across the country? How do we pay our teachers better and support them better and really honor their profession? How do we stretch our scarce dollars so that every single child gets a well-rounded education, complete with the arts and physical education and foreign languages and history and STEM, along with the basics, along with reading and math? And how do we fund our schools more equitably? And if America is about one thing, it's about equality. And if education has one core responsibility, it's to level the playing field so that all of our children have a fair shot at a good life, at being a productive citizen, of being a contributing member of society. So these are the tough questions. And some of the answers, I think, are even tougher to swallow, especially in tough budget times like this. Today, states are being forced to choose between P-12 and higher education. And teacher layoffs are happening around the country. One thing the governor didn't say, but I'm just so proud that he's doing, that he's finding a way to continue to invest in early childhood education and full-day kindergarten. You see other governors across the country who in tough budget times aren't keeping that commitment. And those benefits won't be reaped till probably long after he's gone. But it's the best investment we can make. We don't need another study about the importance of early childhood education. We have to level the playing field. We have to have our babies on grade level, on track in kindergarten and first grade. And I think you're going to full-day kindergarten universal around the state. That is hugely important. It's the right thing to do in tough times. And given the tough economic times, I think few states in the country have done a better job than this state, and that's due to Governor Daniels' leadership. And I want to thank him for his leadership and his courage and his management skills. I want to thank him for his leadership in educational issues. Indiana is one of 42 states that are voluntarily adopting college and career-ready standards. And the governor was an early adopter there. For far too long in this country, we've dummied down standards. We reduced standards. It was bad for children, it was bad for education, it was bad ultimately for the economy, but guess what? When we dummied down standards, it made politicians look good, made them look like they were accomplishing something they weren't. And this is one of those states that really is raising the bar. And the governor talked about working in a bipartisan way. Folks often joke that historically Democrats didn't like standards, Republicans didn't like national, so we couldn't get national standards. So what we now have are common college and career-ready standards, not developed by me, not developed by anyone in Washington, but governors, state school chief officers stepping up and saying, we're going to get out of the business of lying to children and lying to parents and dumbing down standards. We're going to take the leadership. And Indiana's been at the forefront of that movement across the country. 46 states are now coming behind those standards with better assessments and working very hard together to move beyond these fill-in-the-bubble tests, to test critical thinking skills. And again, Indiana's at the forefront of that movement. Race to the top drove a tremendous amount of change around the country. Unfortunately, we only had money to fund about a dozen states, but Indiana is one of those states that didn't receive money that's still moving forward with their reform plans. And we're seeing that here, seeing that in Colorado. Illinois is doing some breakthrough stuff the governor and I were talking about, have breakthrough legislation that passed through the Senate today that is a stunning amount of reform, passed unanimously. Many states said it's not about the money, it's about the ideas. We have a blueprint. We're going to keep moving forward. And Indiana is one of those states that's continuing to do that. As I look across the reform proposals here in the state, there's some I absolutely agree with and some I challenge, some I don't quite agree with. And as you know, we support the expansion of good charter schools like this school. We have to have great schools like this. We have to continue to challenge the status quo. The idea the governor had of having more college scholarships go to young people graduating early from high school, I think is an absolutely innovative idea and one we'd love to see other states adopt, one I hadn't thought about, and really give him tremendous respect for having come up with that idea. We absolutely support a robust teacher evaluation system based on multiple measures, including student achievement, as well as things like peer review and principal observation and student work, student and parent feedback, and objective measures like teacher attendance. I have to emphasize always that the primary purpose of a teacher evaluation system is to give the teachers the feedback they need to get better, to help them differentiate instruction and make a difference in each individual student's life. But it's also important for holding ourselves and each other accountable and for recognizing and rewarding excellence in education, which I think we've been far too shy to do historically. Great teachers, great principals, as you see here, make a huge difference in students' lives. We've been scared to talk about excellence in education. I don't quite understand that. And as you move forward on this stuff, whatever you decide on the teacher evaluation piece, I really urge you to sit down with teachers, sit down with them, work through the issues with them, get their input. Two issues which we sort of part ways on, have some differences of opinion, and that's fine, that's why we're here to talk and discuss it, are around vouchers and limiting collective bargaining rights. Our position on both issues has been clear and shouldn't sort of be a surprise to anyone. We have to make, I believe, every single public school in this country a great, great public school. I think for far too long we created schools for somebody else's children, but not for our own. And my wife and I have two young children at home, 7 and 9, first grade and a third grader. And my test as I go visit every school around the country is, will I send my own children there? If it's good enough for my children, it's good enough for other folks. But if it's not good enough for my children, how can it be good enough for somebody else's? I think we have to get past that mentality and make every single school a great school. Secondly, I view teachers and their unions as partners in reform and not as adversaries. I think teachers are the foot soldiers in the battle to strengthen American education. In Singapore and South Korea, teachers are known as nation builders. It's a really powerful concept. Well, I think our teachers in this country are nation builders, and they need to be treated as such and respected as such. And I think sustaining reform can't happen without that teacher voice and that teacher input. And I want Indiana not to lose the opportunity to drive that change through collaboration. And we had a labor management conference in Denver about a month ago, where we had 150 school districts from around the country come. We would only invite districts where the superintendent and the board chair and the union president would come together. The whole focus was how do you make collective bargaining lead to better student achievement. We had a waiting list of 100 districts. We had about 3 districts from Indiana come to that. And everybody has to change. Management has to change. Boards have to change. Unions have to change. Everyone has to move outside their comfort zones. We have to keep the hearts of minds of teachers, keep them engaged in this effort. Again, what we saw coming through, I urge you to look at what happened in Illinois today. A bill passed the Senate unanimously. That never happens. Huge change on the part of everybody, unions, the business community, management, all moving because they know they need to do a much better job educationally. And so we have to continue to drive that and to do that together. I try and look at what this school has done and what the implications are for the city. When I come visit school districts around the country, I always look at 2 things. It's not an exact measure, but I look at how many 12th graders a school district has and how many 9th graders a school district has. And I wonder where the children go. So here in Indianapolis, we have about 4,300 9th graders, 4,300. We only have about 1,300 12th graders. So it's a 67% gap there. And so my question is, where are all those young people going? I don't think they're all going early to the NBA. I don't think Google and Microsoft and Facebook are coming here and say, give me all your 9th and 10th graders. I think a lot of them are dropping out and going to the streets. Some may be going to other districts. But that's a tremendous dropout rate. A tremendous loss rate, however you want to measure it. And we see great schools and great school districts, the number of 12th graders basically matches up with the number of 9th graders. And we can't have great cities, we can't have great communities if we're losing that number of students to the streets or to other places. And so we have to continue again to challenge the status quo, to have those open and honest conversations. And where we're not getting better fast enough, everything has to be on the table. As the governor said, we have to have the courage to have those tough conversations and really work them through. So we find ourselves on different sides of some issues, but I'll always come back to our common agenda at the end of the day, that we all want great, great schools for our country and for our children. We want a stronger and a more secure and a fair country. And we know that education is the key to the future. The common challenge is the urgency I think we all feel to get better faster than we ever have before. So I appreciate the tremendous challenges facing this state and this city. They are not unique. As I travel the country, again, I'm amazed at how common these challenges are. And we just continue to urge everyone to move outside their comfort zones. Management, political leaders, union leaders, the business community, everybody has to come together on behalf of our children. And we can't let any of the disagreements stand in the way of our collective process. And I think it's not just for you guys' education, it's ultimately the fate of our state here and the fate of the country is based upon our ability to do a much, much better job academically than we ever have. We have huge challenges. We have a desperate need to improve. But when I see schools like this, when I see your guys' commitment, when I see the teachers and administrators of schools like this, I'm absolutely confident our country will get where we need to go. Our goal is to learn from you, to build upon these successes, to take them to scale, and to make these kinds of schools, these kinds of examples, the norm rather than the exception. Thanks so much. I'll stop there, and happy to take any questions along with the governor.
Am I coming back up? All right. There are far too many dignitaries in this room to recognize everyone, but I think it's important that we point out the policymakers that are here with us so that we can ask questions of all the people in the room who are in a position to have an influence on education. Joining to our left, our State Superintendent of Public Education, Dr. Tony Bennett, is with us. Thank you for being here, Dr. Bennett. To my right, we have one of our great legislators from the State House, Representative Marianne Sullivan, is also with us. Thank you for being here, Marianne. I didn't get to greet her personally, but I'm glad to see Senator Jean Breaux is also in the audience and willing to be a part of the conversation. And just in terms of the business that I'm in, great policymaker as it pertains to providing great school opportunities for young people here in our city, the Honorable Greg Ballard is here. Thank you for being here, Mayor Ballard. I'm going to apologize in advance to our guests. We're probably going to take questions from the audience, 2 kids for every adult. Don't be insulted. They pay the rent in the place. They get to ask the most questions.
Do we have to let the adults ask any at all?
So we'll start with a student who has a question. I will bring the microphone to you. I'm going to ask that you keep your questions succinct. And I know I'm only saying this for the kids because the adults would never do this. No follow-up questions.